Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we are anything but straight. My name is Space,
And I'm Bean.
and we welcome you to our episode, which is about what today?
Making a podcast.
Making a podcast.
Making a podcast.
Yes. This wasn't an episode that was requested by anyone, but it was more of one that I kind of wanted to do so that if any one of you guys out there want to create your own podcast, you can kind of get an idea of how to do it. So I thought this might be a fun way to do it. And I'm only going over the basics. There are tons of steps to go over, but the basics should get you where you need to go. I do want to point out that our notes are based off of our hosts. What is our? Oh yeah, Buzzsprout's our host. It's right in front of me. Buzzsprout is our host. They're the ones that allow us to, upload our episodes, and that's how you guys get to listen to them. And then, of course, they're the ones that have all the directories to like Google or Apple or Stitcher, however you listen to us via like Spotify. They have those options. But they also have a really cool step-by-step guide of how to create a podcast. So I thought I'd kind of use this in tandem with what we have. And then, of course, I will also include this link in the information below so you guys can click on it as well. It's really nice, super simple to go with. So there are 5 concepts we're going to go over today. The first one is to create a concept, or I guess a subject, not a concept. The second one is creating a format. The third one is equipment and software. That's the big one. The fourth one is creating your first episode. And then the fifth one is creating your look. I know that sounds weird to do that at the end, but there's a reason for it. So let's start off with creating a concept. Why are you making a podcast? What is it about?
So many people just want to make a podcast, and the hardest part is trying to figure out like your set concept, because I know for us, for a while, it's like, do we even have a concept? Because we're basically just talking about different topics that can pertain to the furry fandom. Should we be more specific, or should we keep it vague? And I know for a while I was thinking about that when we first decided to change over to a podcast style. But making like a flow chart or a spider graph or something can really help with that, and getting the opinions of friends and family on different options that you have. But knowing why you are making a podcast is even more important than figuring out what it's about. So, for example, if you want to make a podcast, because podcasts are really popular right now, if you're making a podcast with the idea, I want to be like a popular podcast, I want to have fans, and I want to have, people emailing me and following me on social media, I want to be big. If you go in with that mindset, you're not going to have a good time, because it is extremely difficult to get a podcast off the ground. And we don't want to let that deter you. That's with everybody. And that's something I learned personally from the McElroy brothers. They were trying to get their podcast going, and it didn't get, its feet off the ground until around its 100th episode. So like, if you go into it with just the mindset that I want to be popular, or I want to have a lot of people talking to me, then you're not going to be as successful as you think, and you're not going to be happy. You have to go into it because you want to, because it's something you think it would make you happy, or something that you're genuinely interested in.
And you can make money off of these podcasting too, but I wouldn't really consider that option until you're pretty seasoned and you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going into thinking, I want to make a lot of money and I want to be popular, you really should set your standards fairly low and not fairly high, because if you set them too high, you'll never meet them, and then you'll get burnt out within seconds, and you're not going to want to do it anymore. And we didn't catch our first big break until Pokari Roo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we had Pokari Roo on, and that was a really fun episode, and it finally got our foot in the door, and we're on season 4, and that's when she appeared, was on season 4. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how long it takes to kind of get your footing, what you want to do, and so forth. But it's not something that's like instantaneous. It takes a lot of hard work. So are you willing to do that? If so, great. We move on to the next part of creating your concept. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? That's another one. You think, well, didn't we just talk about that? I'm like, no. So you want to be popular. Well, how are you going to achieve that? What's your
Exactly.
game plan? There's a lot that goes into it, not just click, record, edit, post. There's more that goes into it. Like for us, what do we want to achieve? Being like, what's our goal?
I mean, I think it depends on the individual. For me personally, my goal with this podcast is to stay connected with the furry fandom on a personal level, and to provide that connection to other people.
And that's kind of how I've always viewed it. It's viewed it from when we started in the For Media days. It was just to be able to connect with people in a way that you just don't connect with others. And even to this day, that's how I feel it. My goal is to make sure that I reach out to you, whoever that is, wherever they are. It doesn't matter. It could be 5 people, it could be 100 people. I don't care. As long as I've reached out to you in some sort of way, then I've won something. I've gained, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's different like there's good thing to kind of like set a goal for yourself and then see how you want to achieve it and maybe create like a game plan of how you're going to achieve that. You know, once again, reach out to your friends, ask their opinions on this. And of course, if your friend says don't do it, that's lame. That's an excuse to go ahead and do it because it's not lame. that's, that's what I've always.
Oh god.
Someone's like, you can't do it. And I'm like, thanks for giving me fire or fuel for the fire because I can do it. So I'm going to do it.
And like with trying to figure out how you want to achieve that goal. I know for us, it's like if we're going to try to stay connected with the fandom, again, on that personal level, and try to just, this fandom is all about social connections, and under, all the animal stuff, we're all human, and having those human connections is extremely important to this fandom. So I know, for a while we were doing, just base topics where Space and I would talk back and forth about specific furry topics, but we've gotten more into having guests on our show or to reading, fan emails or, other things like that, which I think helps connect. And that's something else you'd want to think about. Does your theme or topic involve just you and your other co-hosts talking to each other, or does it involve other people that you would bring in as guests?
Exactly.
But the best part about starting off a podcast, and honestly, the hardest, is trying to pick your name and creating, just that perfect title that, just covers absolutely everything that you want your podcast to be about.
I think the best part, though, when creating your concept for your podcast is naming the podcast. It's like naming your baby or naming your car. Like, for instance, my car's
my baby car.
I actually have my car's name is Gertie, or short for Gertrude. And it's this maroon, I think it's like a 2009 Kia Optima, but my mom calls it like an old granny mobster car. So that's the reason. Gertie just sounds awesome in my name.
Mine's named Jackie.
Nice. Jackie sounds like a lesbian, and you are, so that works.
Yeah, and my old car was named Bernie.
Sweet. I guess it's really feeling the burn, if you get my drift. Gross.
Oh, God.
But podcast name creation, like that's the best part. You can use puns, clever wordplay, but you can also overdo it too. For instance, I just Googled awful podcast names, and the first thing that pops up is Joe Biden's podcast. And it's called Here's the Deal with Joe Biden. I'm just like, that. If I see something that says here's the deal with Joe Biden, the first thing that I think of is news and boredom. So
or
not
it
something
sounds
I want
like,
to go for.
It sounds aggressive, because if he's talking about himself and trying to promote himself, if somebody say, what's the deal with so and so, it sounds like you're salty. Like, the fuck? No.
It's really not. It's not really a good thing. So you don't want to like overdo your name, but you don't also want to like underwhelm it either.
You also don't. You also want to try to avoid putting your name in things. I mean, unless you're a celebrity and the podcast is solely about you, like a biography. But those always are really boring podcasts. Do what you want, but I don't suggest it. But putting your name up in there usually doesn't help. The only way it helps is if you're a celebrity, because then when your name is Googled, that podcast will immediately come up. But if nobody knows who you are, then no one's going to find your podcast because no one's going to Google your name.
There's a podcast that's actually really interesting. Their name is called Syntax, and then it's got a hyphen, and then it says Tasty Web Development Treats. So they didn't just leave it at something boring that everyone's like, oh, syntax, that's okay. It has this second like two punch to it. It's cute because it's got like tasty web development and then treats. And if they do this right, when they go to like market their podcast, whether it's on Apple or Google, Stitcher, Spotify, they can use keywords in searching. So when someone searches the word tasty or web or treats, their podcast will instantly pop up. So you want to use something that catches the eye, but you can also use it in a way that benefits you. But don't do something like, here's the deal with furries.
Boring.
That's boring. No.
And it sets
Don't
you up
do
with
it.
just a single topic. It's so hard to branch out from something like that.
Yeah, you got to have something fun.
Now, there are some examples of podcasters going to the extreme with their names, like making them really long for humor's sake or just making them absolutely ridiculous. I am a pleb, and my favorite podcasters are the McElroy brothers. And there are two that I really love. One would not work. Okay, the name of this podcast that they have is called The McElroy Brothers Will Be in Trolls World Tour. See, just saying that was hard for me.
Say it again.
The McElroy Brothers Will Be in Trolls World Tour, which is Trolls 2.
That's really frustrating to
So,
say.
yeah. Okay, so it's really long. The only reason it works for them is because they are so well known that people will listen to it. They don't have to Google, like, this is an easy Google search, but they don't need people to Google search it. They'll find it on their social media and they'll listen to it. But a really successful, funny name that they have that's short and snappy is Till Death Do Us Blart, which is where they watch Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 every Thanksgiving and talk about it. So it's like you can really, just the way something sounds, like you said, the tasty web something.
Tasty web development treat.
Tasty web development.
It's a mouthful, but it's funny to say.
It rolls off the tongue really well.
It really does.
So and puns are always a good addition too. I know my cousin and I wanted to start a food review comedy podcast where we focused mostly on breakfast, and we wanted to call it the Sunny Side Yup. And so like it's just stupid puns work really well.
Puns really work well for us just because I like to read, like, I have to go pull it up now. We have I have this thing about punning titles, and I just love doing it because it's fun. It kind of like keeps things, alive. So for instance, if I go a few over of our episodes, we've got like fangasms, which are fan orgasms, in a very non-sexual way, obviously. It's just when people like, fan out about us. Furban Dictionary, which is just Urban Dictionary. Pet Peeves, that's another good one you can do for that would be actually a really good, a podcast name is Pet Peeves.
Yeah.
Dude, and you could do a lot with that. But there's so many things you can do with a name. So, what I recommend doing is getting like a piece of paper, or if you don't have paper, then on your computer or whatever, or on your phone, and write down what comes to your mind. Brainstorm the shit out of that name. Come up with a couple of ask your friends, maybe see what other people think. If they like it, great. If they don't, mark it off and move on to the next one. But
yeah.
Don't put too much like emphasis into it, because it's not really like, although it's the name of your podcast, it's not what your podcast is. So don't go super crazy, or don't get frustrated that you can't think of something. It's okay. That part can wait if you want it to.
Definitely.
I like our name though, just because it's completely not what we are. It is straight from the muzzle, and it's straight as in like straight, gay, bi, whatever. And then, of course, our motto is we're anything but straight.
But
So
see, the pun is in
it
the
works.
title. The pun is in our intro, so
I
it
know.
works. Because like straight from the muzzle, I like it because we're a furry podcast and we're talking about different things. It's coming straight from the muzzle. But then you get it. You get
You
it. I
get it.
don't have to
You get
explain
it.
it because you get it.
Unless you're that one butthurt guy who didn't get it. We're not going into
Oh
that. That
yeah,
one's
we did get one guy that was like, "Why is your intro where you're anything but straight if it says straight from the?" I was like, "Boy, you dumb,
bro. Stupid.
stupid."
So once you got your concept, then we move on to the next part, which is creating a format. A format doesn't have to mean like, MP3 or, MPEG-4 or something like that. Not that kind of format.
MPEG
The format,
4.
is that what it's called? MP4 or
I don't.
MPEG-4?
I have no idea.
I think MPEG-4 is like video format, but I've always called it like MPEG-4. I don't know. Maybe it's called MP4. Oh shoot!
maybe
You
we
can call me
maybe
on that
we
one.
should be giving people advice on this because we don't even know.
The format's a floppy disk. We'll say that. No.
I'm gonna
I
teach
remember the
somebody
days.
how to swim, but I gotta use floaties.
Okay, so in your format, there are 4 things we want to cover. First thing is how many hosts do you want to have? The podcast can have someone by themselves, which works just fine. If you are a solitary person, then that's cool for you. For me, I've always worked best when there's another person with me, like Bean. So I think having a duo or even having a little bit more is fun. I would probably not go more than 4 because too many cooks in the pot is exactly as it sounds.
Yeah. The only podcasts I've seen that were successful with like more than 3 hosts are ones that are storytelling based, like D&D podcasts where you have to have so many people on a campaign. But other than that, I've never really seen just a standard podcast have more than 2 or 3 hosts.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean like if you have like 2 hosts and you have a couple of guests, that doesn't count as hosts. Those are just guests. Those are part of your episode. So overall, it just comes to the point where do you want to have 1, 2, 3? And when you're thinking about this, you'll actually want to think about this in the software and equipment world. We'll go into that in a little bit, and I'll tell you why when we get there, where you're going to want to think about how many hosts you're going to have.
Yeah. And something else to connect, with how many hosts you have, it also can connect to how you are going to be talking with your co-hosts, whether because if you're by yourself, then it can be a lot easier because you're 100% in control. But if you have other hosts, you have to work together. And something else that connects to the format is whether you're scripting, improvising, or if you're doing just a little bit of both. Because the more hosts you have, the more
Chaotic it can become.
chaotic it can become. Yes.
And you can have like controlled chaos, like that's a thing. It's a little bit harder to do. So if we were to have, oh my god, I can't even imagine what it would be like if there were 4 of us, because there's times where like Bean and I will have a guest on, or there'll be 2 guests, and we'll be talking, and then one of us will overtalk someone else, and so it can get a little difficult. When I go into the editing process, I'll probably mute myself and someone else so you can hear the other person talking clearly. But it gets really hard when you're actually recording because then you have to kind of like plan it or hope that this other person doesn't like jump in when you're talking because then it gets all muddled and it's really difficult. So
God, yeah, and I know I have stupid monkey brain, and like if I hear somebody say something, I'm like, ooh, I want to say this about what they just said.
yeah.
But if I want to listen to them continue talking, then my brain will forget what I wanted to say. So I have a bad habit of jumping in on accident.
And it's funny too because that happens a lot during our actual episodes. I'll get like really excited. I'll get that monkey brain, and then I'll be like, I forgot what I was going to say, and I'll just kind of go into the next one, and I'll just like be like, man, that would have been really epic. So timing, timing is something you kind of learn eventually, but there's no way to control it. Honestly, there is no way. There's no way for me to know if Bean's going to respond now or later or in the middle of something I'm saying. It's just if it happens, it happens. It's kind of like how we roll with it.
Yeah.
I like to think that we do a little bit of both. We
We
script
definitely do.
and we improv.
And it's not even scripting. It's we have and this can depend on how you want to set up your podcast. You can have scripted moments where you're typing out and you're reading off of it. Of course, you got to learn how to read script naturally, because if it sounds
Mhm.
like you're reading, then it's going to sound bad. But
Oh yeah.
you can have large portions that are scripted. We did try that before when we first started this podcast, and it was absolutely
Awful.
terrible. You
It was
absolutely terrible. You could
awful.
tell we were reading.
Yeah.
But something to help avoid that is having just standard show notes, which are just bullet points of what y'all want to talk about in your podcast, or if you're solo, what you want to talk about in your podcast. So you can, instead of having pure script, you can have show notes, bullet points, just to keep you on track, and add some improvising up in there. But if you do have any script, you just got to learn how to use it properly.
And you know what? I'll even share the notes that we have. I'll create it a link so that only you can view it. You can't go in and edit it, but you can see like how we lay out what we're going to talk about. Keep in mind that just because you lay out a guideline doesn't mean you're going to follow that guideline. How often do we like go off of the guidelines?
Oh my gosh, so
I would say
often.
a lot.
Or sometimes we'll
Probably like every
accidentally
episode
skip
we
a
record.
bullet.
Yeah, we will. And then we'll like come up with something for that bullet, and then I'll go back and edit it in if I need to, or we'll just skip it altogether and be like, it's not worth it. So, so yeah, there's notes are really good to have. They keep you on point.
Yes.
Which plays into our next little bullet, which is how long are your episodes going to be? You can have episodes that are as small as 10 to 15 minutes. You can go in the medium range, 20 to 30 minutes. I think we tried to go anywhere between like 45 minutes to an hour, and we're pretty good. We can usually stay within that range, but if we have a guest, we know we're going to go a little bit longer than that just
Yeah.
because it's a given. But your notes also keep you on point when it comes to timing. So if you don't have notes, you're probably more likely to ramble a little bit more or go off topic more. I mean, we go off topic anyways. That's part of us. It's what we do. But having notes and then knowing what you're going to time, like podcast wise, is going to really, really help you. Highly recommend it.
Here's a tip if you're starting out and you're brand new at podcast making. Your first episode, you should not make it more than like 35 minutes long. And here's why. When you release your first episode, it's going to suck. Everybody's first episode sucks. Our first episode sucked.
Our second episode sucked. Like,
Yeah.
I think our first several episodes sucked balls.
So like, but here's the thing: if you keep it short, so let's say you're on the audience side, you're like, oh, this is a new podcast, let me try it out. They start listening to it. Most people do things while they listen to podcasts. They don't just sit there and zone out. So your podcast is going while this person is doing whatever. They're listening to you, and if it's only 30 minutes long, boom, that episode is over. And they're like, wait, what was that? It? And then it's like, oh, well, I mean, if I listened to the whole thing, I must have liked it. Let me try the next episode. So It creates a chain reaction where they'll click the next one because, the first one's naturally over. The second episode will play. So if you keep especially your first episode, but the first handful of episodes on the shorter side, it'll help people, get interested in what you're having to say on your podcast. And especially since, when you do start to gain an audience and when you do get better at podcasting, you'll have an audience at that point that will be willing to sit there for an hour and listen to you talk.
Your first episode should be as catchy as those Dead Sea mineral like kiosks you see at the mall. They catch you, they reel you in, and then you're stuck there, right? That's kind of like what your first episode should be. It's a taster, it's a teaser to kind of what you are going to build.
That's a good allegory because like you're walking through the mall, someone's like, hey, come over here, try this perfume, and they grab you and they're like quickly spraying you with shit, and they're like, so it's only $5, you want some? And then you're like, I guess, and then you buy it and then they push you out. You were only there for 10 minutes, but you find yourself buying perfume even though you didn't need any. So like
I hate those kiosks so much, especially the ones that like it's like this little bit of like I think it looks like a condom wrapper, to be honest.
Oh my
But
gosh.
like, it's like this little square, and they're like, "Here, have a sample." And I'm like, "No, I don't want your condoms." And I'm like, I'll say it out loud too, on purpose, because it looks like a condom. It really does. It looks like a condom wrapper. And so they look at me like they just look at the same. I'm like, "Look, you chose to work at that kiosk,
Yeah.
and I chose to respond." So, with all that being said, the one thing you do want to make sure that in your format is to create a schedule. Bean has this really good program that she likes using. It's called Trello. Do you want to explain what that is?
Oh, I love Trello.
Yeah, you do.
So, a lot of artists and fursuit makers use Trello to keep themselves organized, but Trello was made for mostly like businesses to help collaborate. And it has, a lot of options to help you schedule things, to help you organize checklists, and, all of that. I'm actually planning on making a video tutorial on how to use Trello on my YouTube channel eventually. But it's a really great website to try and figure out your scheduling. So, for example, Space and I have a Trello page that is set up where each row is like, January, February, March, April, and it goes on in the months. And then inside of
Mhm.
those rows, there are different cards that have the different show topics we'll be covering. So it'll have the dates, it'll have the thumbnails, it'll have any show notes, as Word documents attached in the attachments folder. And then it'll have a checklist. So usually the checklist is thumbnail art, recorded, edited, and then published.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm actually looking at it right now. We have tons of these little like show topic ideas. And then we have like possible guests that we want to have on. And I was looking at the boards. We have so many boards.
We
we have
do.
let's say we have a Surfing the Muzzle board, which has all of our topic ideas, our months laid out, the calendar, which we don't really use. There's a really good board in here that we created last year. It's the Pride Month's featured furry, and that's when Bean created a post, and it just like lit on fire and spread like crazy. And so to keep an idea or keep I guess,
to keep track of all the artists that we were looking at, because we, of course, the point of that show was to look at different lesbian furry artists and to signal boost them, but we wanted to make sure we kept track of their names, because that was the whole point, is to signal boost those artists. So that Trello list, it had all of the art that we showed and with all of the names of the artists, and we made that board public, because on Trello you can make them private where only you and certain people can look at it, or you can make it public. And then that way, like, let's say you do something like that on your podcast, like you talk about, a bunch of different artists or something, you can make a list on Trello and link it in the description. So that way people can just click that link and get all the information that they need from you.
Also, Trello is free, so take advantage of that.
Yes, Trello is very free.
I'm sure you can pay for it, but don't pay for it. It's just as good as it is now.
I don't even think they have options to pay for it. I might be wrong, but
They might be one of those what do you call it? It's kind of like when you get free software, but you can donate if you want to.
yes.
Kind of a thing. I
Like
bet it's
Wiki?
probably one of those. Yeah, yeah. I don't donate to Wiki. No way. Someone else is going to do it for me. I know. Okay, so once you have all of that, you got everything kind of like figured out, your next thing you're going to want to look into is equipment and software. And this is where it gets tricky.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because it's the most intimidating part of creating a podcast, in my opinion. Like, well, what kind of mic do I use? What kind of programs do I edit with? How do I use these programs? Like, you have to learn so much when it comes to the technology of making
What's
a
the
podcast.
difference between this microphone and that microphone? And why does it make me sound better? And that one's more expensive, but it sounds really crappy. Like, there's so much that can go wrong in this area.
So the first piece of equipment that you think of when you think podcasts is microphones. I mean, even our logo has a microphone in it. So it's one of the key parts of podcasting, because without that, no one could hear you. And that's the whole point. So, there's a lot of different options. We can talk about, expensive microphones versus more affordable ones. There's also microphones that are like gaming headsets. And there are also some that are Bluetooth and wireless. But all of these have their pros and cons. Space knows a lot more about the details of these items, so I'm gonna let you handle it from there.
Mostly because I've gone through lots of them.
Yes.
Let's see. Okay, so the very first ones that I actually got for Bean and I, what I intentionally I wanted to get us like podcasting microphones, and so I got these ones off of Amazon. They were like what, $40 each.
Hmm.
They look like a good deal. And so they came with like the foam ball that goes over the microphone, and then it comes with the little arm that you can clip onto your table and then reach it over, so it kind of feels like you're really like in a podcast setting. Well, I didn't really take into account that it doesn't actually necessarily work with all computers, or there's a little bit of like glitchiness when you plug it in, and there was just issues. I didn't really know how to tune a particular microphone in general, so I just got this thinking this is what we need. It didn't work, so we kind of like trashed that idea. Though I don't regret buying it because it was still kind of cool. It's pretty neat.
I mean, I still use
Um,
it from time to time.
Yeah, I use it in emergency settings, but I don't use it like if I don't need to, I don't need to.
Or if I have an in-person guest and we both need to speak into one mic, I use it.
Oh, yeah, like with
Jess
yes, Jess.
on our
That was a
Trans
good.
and Furry show.
I didn't know you did that.
Hmm.
I thought you were Oh, that's cool. Well, I just learned something new. Um then there's like what did I let's see. I think back in for media's days, we never used like standalone mics. We
Used
used
your laptop mics, didn't you?
we used laptop mics or we used gaming headsets. And something I've always liked because gaming headsets are really good quality, they have really good sound, they just work out all together. But I thought in order to have a podcast, you need to have a really good microphone and move away from the gaming. Well, after that Amazon incident, then I got being a gaming headset, and I believe it's a Turtle Beach,
Yeah.
and it works out really well for you. It actually makes you sound really good. And I don't know why I kind of strayed away from it. So then I went and I bought myself a blue snowball. So it's called a snowball. I think they initially come in white or silver. And the base one's like 30, $40. And then I got one that was like $60. And I thought, okay, this is for like podcasting, and like set it on the side of the box. I bought it. I thought it was working out pretty good, but as I started noticing when I went to go edit the episodes, I was a lot quieter than Bean was, and that always bothered me. Um, so then I finally made a purchase, and I spent like $100 and got myself a premium headset gaming thing, and it works out great. So no regrets there. But that's
It's
the thing. It's trial and error.
and it's crazy because in most of the podcasting like panels and how to make a podcast like videos and other podcasts that I've watched where they talk about equipment, almost every single one of them has talked about how gaming headsets don't work well, but it's the only thing that's worked for us so far.
Yeah.
Like, what do you use? Because we've went through a handful of mics.
The reason why it works so well for us is if you think about it, if you have a standalone mic and then you have to have a headset with that too. So now you're buying two products that are probably going to be equally as expensive if you were just to buy the headset. I'm realizing this now for myself. When you speak into a microphone, you have to speak in front of it. You can't move over to the side or the left or the right because not all podcasting microphones are built like that. They're built to take the sound directing from one particular direction. It's a one direction band. Just kidding, it's not.
Boo.
Boo, I'm sorry. I was trying. But with a gaming headset, what's nice is that no matter if I move my head, so I'm moving my head up and down and left and all around, the mic stays with me because it moves with your head. And that's what's I kind of like about it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about this giant thing in front of me as I'm trying to type or create notes. It's easier, but that's not going to be necessarily the case for you. You may find that having a standalone mic and then having a headset works better. It really just depends. Um, do your homework. Learn what the difference between the mics are. I still haven't really learned the difference between the different mics, mostly because it doesn't really appeal to me. Like I don't want to like invest so much money into something that's or I guess time into something that's just not what I'm really trying to go for. I'm trying to create quality content and I'm trying to do quality over quantity. So I don't necessarily really care about like the mics and having everything. I want to create good content, and
Yeah.
that's where I've always gone from. So expensive versus affordable, it really just depends. It's up to you. It's kind of like wine. Wine, if it's really expensive, doesn't mean it's going to be good. And wine that's really cheap doesn't mean it's going to be crappy. It just depends on the individual that's using it. You have to kind of go at it and do your research, kind of like pull up like four browsers next to each other and kind of do like a kind of like what is that comparison like you
Hmm.
do like on travel sites. You compare different
Yes.
prices. Gaming headsets work really well for us. We've covered that. But the one thing I will say is never ever do a Bluetooth or wireless option. It's kind of
Oh
funny. You just
yeah.
said it like, oh, they say that gaming headsets are no good for podcasts. And here I am saying wireless Bluetooth is no good. And the reason I say that is because your computer may not be able to pick up the quality of the Bluetooth that you're using, or it may not connect all the way. So it may sound good, but then all of a sudden, like it'll crack out every couple of seconds. It's Bluetooth, it's wireless. That's kind of like the downside of getting that. So if that's your only option, go for it, but I would not recommend it.
Yeah, if you're gonna get any kind of standalone microphone, one that actually plugs into what you need works
Mhm.
far better.
Yeah. Headphones. Headphones can be really cheap and really expensive. If you're going to get a standalone mic, don't buy a super expensive pair of headsets. Like I have, I don't know what it is. I have like a collection of like headphones now. So I have a Sony one that only cost me like $15 at Best Buy, and it's actually really good. It's really light, doesn't squeeze my ear, so it doesn't pinch it at all. I have a Logitech Bluetooth headset with a mic. I actually used that when I worked at a call center, but I used to use it, and I kind of use it when I play with like my husband when we play Borderlands, just because I can hear him a lot better. I wouldn't use these mics that I'm using like right now to play with him because it blocks out sound, so I can't hear him communicate to me. You could use earbuds if you want to. That works as well. If you want to use Bluetooth for the headphones, specifically just for audio, that's fine. Just don't use it for the recording mic part. And then we go on to the equally more confusing
Oh
area,
God,
the software.
software. Oh no.
So I was trying to remember, we could not remember for the life of it what the original software that we used to create our podcast. And I figured it out finally because I'm like, I've got to have like some
Like
email
a
in here
receipt or
somewhere.
something.
Yeah. And so I went on there and I'm like, I forgot my password. And then I sent it to myself. And then it's like, okay, this is the one that we started with. And it was called TriCast. So it's TRYCA period ST. It seemed really good at the beginning, but as we started to learn, it had a lot of issues. Like it would stop connecting out of nowhere, or it would interrupt our sound. It just seemed too good to be true. It was really simple,
Yeah,
but that's the thing. It was just really simple.
it was
And even if,
crunchy.
yeah, it was crunchy. Oh, that was so frustrating. Our first couple of episodes were recorded on TriCast. So if you go back and you listen to them and you're like, wow, this sucks. Well, that's the reason why. So I don't recommend it. There are other really good ones like Zencaster. That's what we're using right now to record. There's free options and then there's paid options, but it's a really good system and it works well no matter what you do. Zoom is another good one. That's a lot for like meetings, like right now during the pandemic. A lot of people are using Zoom. You can also record on it, but it's not really meant to be a podcast software. It's just good for meetings. So if that's something that works for you, do it. If you like that kind of a thing, you can go with Skype. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can
Oh,
do it.
you
Skype used to be
can,
good.
but
It
it's
just sucks
not
now.
like it's. Ugh. If you're gonna use Skype, for any kind of podcasting, it's a visual and audio medium. A lot of people use it not they're not recording off of Skype, but they're using it to talk to their hosts, like as side chats or using the video option, but recording somewhere else. So, like muting your mic on Skype and recording in Zencaster, for example. But a lot of people don't need the video. Like when Space and I talk to each other, we're not looking at each other through a webcam at all. We're just talking to each other with our audio. So
Mhm.
Skype's, it's crunchy as well. Everything about Skype is, I feel like Skype is going to go out of business soon because it sucks.
It, yeah, it does. So those are like, I guess another good recording software too. We'd like to do a lot of visual shows. I didn't put this one in there. There's, what do they call it? It's called,
OBS Studios?
yeah, OBS Studios. So that's Open Broadcasting Software. That's just a company that you don't have to pay for it because it's free, but you can donate it and it's kind of suggested to do so. So at the beginning, OBS was really good. It worked really well for us for media when we would do live streams on YouTube, but then it kept updating and it just got more confusing and it required more time to learn how to use the program overall than it was when it began. So if that's something you want to do and you like doing like gaming kind of things, I recommend that.
Yeah.
But for something that's simple for us, we just want something that works well, has good quality, doesn't give us any sort of issues. I bought a program. I actually just bought it straight up. So I own it. I don't have to pay any more year costs or anything. I think it was like $30. It's called Ep4. It can be a web-based recording program, but it also works by itself without having to be web-based, which is really nice. Super easy. That's what we use for our visual shows, and I love it. No issues there.
Works good.
When it comes to editing, though, that's a totally different story.
For editing
When you
videos, yeah.
for editing videos, you use what? What do you use?
Use Windows Movie Maker.
You wouldn't know though. She's really good at it.
I physically, like, my computer didn't have it on there, and I like went to a bootleg website and downloaded it because I'm just so used to using it, and it's so accessible to me. But most people don't have visual shows for a podcast, so it doesn't apply to them. But that's what I that's what I use for our YouTube videos.
We find the reason to do it is because there's a lot of good things that we want to share that you can't really get when you're listening to it. So visually seeing it is fun. So if you ever see like one of our episodes skip where it goes from like 12 to 14, often most that 13th episode is on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's why. When it comes to editing though, this is the hard part. So creating a podcast, recording a podcast, that's all fun, but then it also requires another skill, and that's editing. And so you have to take the tracks. Like Zencaster it gives us like two separate tracks, so I can see my sound waves and I can see Bean's sound waves. And when we're done, it turns it into MP3 instantly. I can download it, and then I put it into something called Audacity. Now, I don't like how they promote Audacity. If you Google search easiest podcast editing software, Audacity always comes up first. It is not the easiest out there.
No,
it's probably like the most confusing one.
It's very confusing.
But when I've used it over and over, I've learned how to edit with it. And so over time, I've gotten used to it. I use a variety of softwares together to create the podcast. And I'll go over those in just a moment. But Audacity is a good one to edit, kind of like take out like, pause moments or quietness or awkward silences. And then there's other things like GarageBand. That's usually one that you would use if you're going to be like making like music. GarageBand is mostly used for that, but you can also use it for podcasting as well. Alido it sounds like a sci-fi movie, and trust me, it should be. But it's actually a really good program I use in work with everything else. You can record on it. I would prefer not to. I like what we're using now, but it's a cleaning software. So you can upload all of your edited tracks to this software, and then you can link them all together. And then when you link it and you hit process, it then treats all of them and combines them together, and then cleans up all the unnecessary cracklings or all of the background noise. And so it makes it sound really clean and crisp. And so that's what we use now. We weren't using that until like a couple of months ago. We started using that. I really like it though. So you'll want to learn how to edit or find someone who can edit it for you. But then here's the problem. Usually the person creating the podcast knows what the podcast should sound like. So therefore, when you're doing it, it only makes sense for you to edit it because only you know how you want it to sound. Unless you have like a really good friend or a good connection with someone who knows that aspect of you, great. But a lot of the times they don't. So it's a good quality to pick up.
Yeah, learning how to edit yourself definitely benefits when you're starting off with a podcast. But when you get larger with an audience, or if you choose, like, if you're lucky enough to make podcasting an actual career and not just a hobby, then it would benefit to have an actual editor, because the more advanced you get and the bigger your audience and the more episodes you release, the more work you have to do.
Audience?
Yeah, I said that weird, didn't I? Audience. Audience. But the bigger your audience, the more work there is. So if you can hire an editor that you trust, or that you know their work and you know that they'll edit things how you want, you can make editor's notes for them, things like that. You can have a separate editor. But learning how to edit yourself is such a useful skill, just in case. Like, what if your editor just decides not to do it anymore and needs to quit for personal reasons? You need to learn how to do it yourself for any situation like that until you can find another editor.
Let's go over costs real quick. You can make a podcast for free. It is entirely possible. People have done it for a long time, and that's an option you can go down. Just remember that when you do free products, you're getting just a bare minimum of what you're using. So if you want to create quality, you need to also learn to invest, but know what to invest in is probably the best thing to know.
Definitely.
So you can do free. I prefer to go down the subscription route. I think it's a little bit better, and I use all these programs together. The first one I use is called Buzzsprout. That is our host site. Like I said at the beginning, that's where we upload all of our podcasts to. It also has all the directories to it. And if you ever want to know, like, how do you get known? How do you get like out there? I'd be more than happy to sit down with you one-on-one and talk about this and share my screen so you can see all these different things. So for that, I pay a rate of $18 a month. That gives us 6 hours of recording that we can use. So that means we can upload about 4 or 5 episodes a month if we really want to. And then what's really nice is it tells you how much time you have left. That kind of gives you an idea of what you can plan for the next episode, or you can wait till the next cycle and then it just kind of refreshes all over again. Zencastr is free, but if you want the Pro Edition, which is the one that I have, it is $20 a month. It gives us the best quality, and then it allows us to not have to worry about latency issues. It just records in live time. So if Bean sometimes will cut out because she's on Wi-Fi, it'll actually still record her. It sounds weird on my end, but when I go to actually download it and then like edit it, I can't tell that she was kind of like cutting out or not.
Blipping.
It's just the blips are not there. It's just perfect. So that's about $20 a month for that. The next one is Alido. Now, I talked about Alido. It's that program that cleans everything up. What's also really nice is Alido also allows me to have put intro music and outro music in, and it also allows me to edit if I want to, and I can do a couple of other things like teaser trailers and whatnot. So I really liked the package, and so I went for a free trial, which it does for 7 days, and then I pay $28 a month for that. So we record, we then clean it up, and we upload to Buzzsprout, and there's that. But then I use another couple of things. I invested in something called Tune Pocket. If you want to have an introduction music, you don't have to. For the longest time, we didn't, but it kind of like sets the mood. And when you hear it, you're like, that's a Straight from the Muzzle episode, because because you're used to hearing that song. You can buy tracks if you want to. You can buy them. I think they're usually like $2 or $3 a piece. But I like having the option of choosing from a variety. So I decided to buy the full package. It was $99 for the whole year. I didn't necessarily buy it $99. I kind of bought it as like a trial version. And then I'm like, oh, they're having a special, which I realized it really wasn't a special. It was just the other amount that I didn't pay. I think it was like 37 and like 53, and it ended up being like $99 anyway. So
yeah,
whatever.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you, yeah. But the cool thing is we have an intro and we have an outro, and we have a lot of options to choose from when it comes to holidays or specific themed episodes. So that gives us a lot of things to play with, and I really like that. And I can put those into Alido, and I can tell Alido I want this to be on the intro and I want this to be on the outro, and it pieces it all together perfectly. So it works really well. And then the last thing, you don't have to have this, is something I kind of added like recently. It's called Linktree. We learned from it from Pokari Roo. You can create one link, but within that link has like 20 different links. It can be like your Facebook, your Twitter.
Your turn to say weird words.
Your Twitter, your Instagram, your email, all that fun stuff. Initially, it's free, but I really wanted the layout where it has the what did I call it?
Like just custom backgrounds
Oh,
and banners and stuff.
yeah. So it's a pulsating heart, but it's a rainbow heart, and I really like that. So if you click on it and you go on your phone, it's kind of slow, but you can kind of see all the colors. If you're on your like if you're on your computer and you click on it, it's like this beautiful pulsating heart behind it, and you can click all the different links. I really like that, so that's why I paid for it. Overall, that's about let's see, with Buzzsprout, Zencaster, Alido, and Linktree, it brings it to about $110-ish. If we add on the Tune Pocket subscription that I bought for just the year, and that's not to own it for the rest of my life, it's just for a year. It was 99, so we're looking at like what, about $200-ish. It seems like a lot, but it's not when you break it down. For each episode, it costs us about $4.35 to $5.80. And if we do 4 episodes a month, that's about $20 a month. So not bad, especially since we're trying to produce good quality and we're trying to get ourselves out there. So for me, it's worth it. For you, it really depends on what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
And I don't mind sharing that cost because you got to know the cost eventually.
I mean, and it's helpful for people to know because, like, they might not use the same exact like programs or types of microphones or anything like that as us, but it still gives you some insight. Like, if you want to actually, delve deep into podcasting and you need to get, these programs that aren't free in order to get the best audio quality possible, you are going to have to dip into your wallet, and it can help prepare you for that. I know, like, there are ways to upload a podcast for free. Like, if you don't, for example, we use Buzzsprout, and I love Buzzsprout. It's nice and clean. It's easy. It's accessible to our audience. But if you can't afford that, like if you're just starting out, I've seen podcasters upload just to a YouTube channel where they just have a still and the audio. It's a video that people just start playing in the background. So that you'll find ways around costs. Just make sure you choose things that work best for you. So, like, if you have a low budget, I would focus on trying to get started on YouTube instead of purchasing access to RSS feed stuff. Or not buying a $200 mic straight off. You can get a headset for $50 or whatever to start yourself off. So you will grow your budget as your podcast grows. But if you just want to try it out, then you definitely can get by.
Now, you hear us say Buzzsprout a lot through this episode. We're not being paid to drop their name in it. We're dropping the name because it's just that user friendly to use. For instance, because we use it, it also gives us options for resources. And those resources are resources? Good Lord. Rub it off onto me. Your name's not Boone, it's Bean. This happens when you record. There are partner discounts within BuzzFeed. So there are things like transcribing. You can get 20% off of an annual transcribe. So if you want to have, like, let's say your podcast transcribed into like English or into other types of languages, you can do that, but it's not going to cost you the same amount if someone were to just go straight to that page. You're going to get a discount on it. They have things called the Hindenburg Journalist. Now, the Hindenburg Journalist is a type of editing software. I looked at it. It was really confusing for me, so I chose not to do it. But they have other things like designs. They have sound stripes, so things you can use for your podcast, like sounds. Alido. I actually used Alido, so we got a discount at the beginning, and it's over now, but I got a really good discount from it. But Buzzsprout just has all of these like resources for you, and it builds it for you. So at the very beginning, even for like the most seasoned podcaster, I could see us using this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It just has everything we need. It has directories. We just have to like put a feed in there, and then boop, we're on Stitcher or we're on Spotify. It's just so easy. So I always recommend it, and it's cheap. It works really well. And then we move on to creating your first episode.
Yeah. Once you have all your software, all your mics, and all the, bells and whistles,
Ducks in a row.
you still got to sit down and you still got to make that shitty first episode.
It's going to suck.
It is. And that's okay. I mean, I've heard a lot of podcasters say, like, you're going to make your first episode and you need to delete it immediately and then record your first episode for a second time. Like, I've heard people say that, like, you never post your first episode, re-record it, and there's some truth to that. If you feel
how many times did we do that?
Yeah, for real. We did. Our first episode,
like
I think we
5 or 6 times.
We recorded 5 or 6 different episodes before we were finally like, okay, we got our feet wet. Let's do this. Like,
yep.
Like we said earlier, we tried to script our episodes for a while, and we probably tried that like 2 or 3 times before we were like, man, we ain't doing this again.
That was awful. We're never scripting our stuff ever again. I mean, sometimes we do, but it's not like you wouldn't know, and we don't do it for the whole episode. We do it for like a couple of seconds.
Usually for like any intro points, or God, even then, I feel like our intros are mostly us bumbling over each other, but that's okay. That is us.
That's why you guys listen to us. That's just because that's us. Your first episode is going to be your pilot. I wouldn't call it episode 1. I would call it season 1 pilot.
Yeah.
And your first episode will be the one after that, once you kind of get an idea. After a couple of episodes, you'll get an idea of how you want things to run, and then you'll kind of make improvements from there on out. You'll tweak things, you'll add things or remove things. And I wouldn't say for some of people, they are really successful right out of the gate. We were not that.
No.
But I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't go back and redo it, because it's the mistakes that we made and all of the different roadblocks that we went through that kind of helped us be where we are now.
Here's something that a piece of advice for your first episode that we did not follow. For your first episode, don't make it an introduction about yourself.
No.
Don't make it an introduction about yourself. And here's why. So you're starting a podcast. Most of the time, if you're starting, brand new, nobody knows who you are. And because of that, you might think, well, I could do an intro, tell people about myself. No. Don't do it. People are not listening to your podcast to learn about who you are. They are trying your podcast to listen about the topics that you're wanting to cover, right? So instead of making your pilot like, all about me, who am I as the host? No, make it about what your podcast is about. So for example, if you're talking about food reviews, your first episode is going to be, reviewing Taco Bell's chalupa. Not about who the hell you are. Nobody cares. They want to hear about the chalupa, not about who you are. So for example, our first episode was a weird introductory ramble, when honestly, our first episode should have just been talking about, I don't know, how, what fur affinity is, or us talking about fursuits or something furry related. We didn't do that. So making sure your first episode is sticking with the theme and the topic of what your podcast is going to be as a whole is the way to go. Because as people continue listening to your content, they will learn who you are. Mm-hmm. They'll learn about you. And it's okay to learn about people gradually. That's totally fine. But that's not what people come to podcasts for a first episode. And you will lose your audience if you make it an introduction about you.
Unless your whole podcast is about introductions, which would be really interesting if you could pull that off.
Oh my gosh. You just introduce different people.
Hi, this is my mom. Okay, have a good one. See you next time. What? It was like, literally, if that was a podcast and each episode was like 10 seconds long, I'd subscribe like that.
Oh man, honestly, a podcast that would be, it'd be more interesting as like a YouTube channel, but
yeah,
a podcast where you're on the streets and you find somebody and you're like, hey, can I record you? Just introduce yourself. Like, that's it. Find
breathe
interesting
really
people.
Funny. Can I record your breathing?
Yeah.
It'd be really awkward, but I would listen to that. When you're creating your first episode too, or when you're creating your episodes, we recommend creating something called a safe word. What's a safe word?
So a safe word, much like in the BDSM community, is a word you use to stop whatever is happening.
Tap out.
To tap out. So when you're recording, especially if you have guests who, aren't used to the chemistry of the podcast or of the hosts and how they talk to each other, it's good to have a safe word where it can stop whoever is talking so you can have a minute. So, for example, we had to use a safe word during this recording. And of course, you don't hear them because we edit them out. But
Yep.
so, for example, we were talking and I saw my phone ringing and it was my fiance. So I waited for space to finish his sentence and I said our safe word, pickle. And as soon as I said pickle, he was like, oh, okay. And he stopped talking. And I was like, my phone is ringing. I need to pick it up. It's my fiance. And then that was it. Like, so having a little safe word helps a lot because it's better than being like, oh, hey, wait, because that's you're just trying to stop somebody from talking and it can be
Yep.
messy, But if you make a safe
Well,
word,
and it.
if you make a
I'm
safe,
sorry.
if you make a
That's
safe
right.
word, it's sharp.
What also really is nice about the safe word is when you're editing, if you hear the word pickle, like when I hear it, I know to stop, put a cut line in there, and then continue going. And then I put another cut line and I remove that content. So it helps me figure out where things need to be removed or where things need to be adjusted. So it's kind of like a two-way word. It's really nice.
Yes. And when you are like, if you're your own editor, if you're recording and the safe word is used, it's really helpful while you're recording. As soon as somebody says your safe word, so for us, pickle, as soon as Space hears pickle, he writes on a sticky note or on his desk the timestamp. So when he goes back to record, it's easier for him to edit. So you don't have to sit there and listen intently for the word pickle.
I actually am glad that I write it down because I have like this white desk. You'll see it eventually, Being when you come out and visit. It's I like to call it a whiteboard. In fact, I should get whiteboard pens really because that would probably be better than writing on it. And I write all these notes. Like during the Ash Coyote episode, I wrote all the different breaks, all the different times we said pickle, and there was just like this mess of writing everywhere. But I knew exactly where to edit things, and it works so well. If you guys want to use pickle, sweet, go for it. It's a good fun word for us to use, and it works.
And we started using it because I was eating pickles before we started recording, like, I don't know, episode 3 or something.
And we're like, we need like a safe word. You're just like, how about pickle? It just kind of stuck with us for 4 seasons. It stuck. And there's even like we joked about it in the Ash Coyote episode too. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
When you're all done, you edit it, you publish it, and you let the world see it.
Or
And that's
hear
it, really. Everything else that kind of falls afterwards, like creating cover art for your episodes, you don't have to, but you can if you want to. That kind of gives the user or the visitor like an idea of what it's going to look like. Plus, if you're on your phone, it pops out at you and you look at that and you're like, I want to watch that or I want to listen to it. Logos are always nice to have. Create some logos. If you can't, reach out to someone, say, here's my idea. This is what I want it to look like. Create it. Being
or a
just
mascot.
recently, yeah, we have a mascot. We have a mascot in our logo.
Yeah, Blue.
And Bean actually came up with Blue. And then Bean reached out to a friend of hers and they created us a logo, an actual logo that really means something now, not just random art that we created.
And if you it's good, I suggest all podcasts to at least have a logo and some banner art for whatever social media pages that you have. If you're not an artist, pay artists. Make sure you're not stealing art off of Google or clip art or anything like that. Even if you have to go to Fiverr to find a freelance artist, like if for some reason a non-furry is listening to this, which I heavily doubt it, but if you're not a furry podcast or your logo isn't, is just a standard Fiverr logo, then you can use Fiverr, find some freelancers that aren't based in the furry fandom. So you can find ways around it. The best way to do it is to, create it yourself, whether that's through editing software like Sai or Photoshop or Fire Alpaca, which is free. Or you can hire somebody.
Luckily for us, here's a really interesting thing. Podcasts usually consist of 1 to 3 people. And generally, it's 2 people recording, and then you have the sound person kind of adjusting, and then that's it. And everyone else kind of does their own thing. I really like the way that our team is set up because we're super unique in the way that we do this. Bean is also a graphic artist, but a fursuit maker as well. Dear Dog is specifically a graphic artist, and so if I need something done for like cover art, I go to her. But I don't always just let her do it. Sometimes I go and I tip her or I commission her because I feel like her artwork should be paid for, not just for me to use it and take advantage of it. And then we have Boomstar that moderates all of our chats, but also goes on and makes sure that our tweets are retweeted and goes and contacts people. So we have a good crew that has a purpose, but all of us work together simultaneously, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yes.
But you don't have to have a giant team. You can have one or two people. It's totally up to you. I like having a team. I think it's more fun that way.
It definitely is.
But,
I love our team.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it. We've had our team for
since for media.
Yeah, well, since for media for sure. But I've kept Dear Dog since I've kept her for like 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the cool thing is I've seen her art from when she started to where it is now, and she has dramatically changed. And she loves doing our cover arts because I always come to her with the most unique ideas, and then she like creates it. She knows what I want. It's just, I love it. Love it. Love it. So anyways, that's our episode about creating a podcast. If you want to learn more, I will include that link to Buzzsprout, or you can always just ask us questions. Also, you can leave us a voicemail now, and that information will be available down below. So if you want to leave us like a 1-minute voicemail, we'll put that into our next episode. Why not?
I'm so excited for any voicemails we might get. We already have one. Super stoked.
I'm excited to hear if we get like a negative one, because I'm going to be like, someone actually did that.
If we get negative ones, we should just pile them up and keep them for their own episode.
Oh my God. Yes, that would be great. Like an NSFW episode.
If we ever have a Roast Your Persona episode, it'd be great to do them roasting us.
Oh, that would be great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I'd love that. There you go. Suggest it. And we'll actually make it an episode now that we think about it. Anyways, anything else to add before we let go?
I can't think of anything else. We got you covered.
Cool. Well, then we will see you guys on our next episode. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening.